This is Breakfast with Gareth Parker.
16 minutes past 7, 10 degrees in Perth. Yesterday we learned that the Safe WA contact tracing app, that the information contained, which we were promised that would only be used for contact tracing purposes, had been sought and obtained by Western Australia Police on 2 occasions. It was an extraordinary revelation given all that we were told about the app and what it would be used for. I think, and I've already said this morning, that the actions of WA Police in seeking this information have undermined and will continue to undermine confidence from the public in both the app and the system itself. But it's also a breach of trust with the state, which said that these extraordinary measures would be brought into place for a specific and limited purpose. And that has turned out not to be the case. I am pleased to say that the Police Commissioner, Chris Dawson, has agreed to speak with us about it this morning. He was originally scheduled to not be on the program and to be away, but he's agreed to front up. Commissioner, good morning.
Morning, Gareth.
Was this a mistake?
No, it wasn't, and I've got a lot to say about it because I've heard your editorial, which I think you're actually off-piste on, because we did it lawfully, and I'm happy to discuss why, and I'm happy to answer your questions, so away you go.
Well, you may have done it lawfully, but there was a very clear understanding in the mind of the public that this information was given for a very specific and very limited purpose.
And the Premier and the Deputy Premier did make public statements about that. Did you sign up for the app, Gareth?
I did. But hang on.
And
It's not about what I did. Let's just focus on the issue at hand. The Premier and the Deputy Premier did make those statements, and that was the public's understanding. You would agree that that was the public's understanding of how this information would be used?
I would agree that the Premier and the Deputy Premier made it very clear that it's for the contact tracing purposes. When I signed up for the app and when you signed up for the app, the terms and conditions said it can be issued for a lawful reason. And it's in, and look, I know and I accept that people don't always read fine print on insurance policies and whatever. And this is a very important principle, but the police have only got information twice out of 240 million transactions, and they are exceptional circumstances, and it is lawful. So, you know, I understand why you are quite agitated about it, but police have a duty to investigate crime. And we're talking here about a man who was shot in a public arena with a allegedly high-powered weapon, and other people were injured. And in another situation where a man was stabbed 3 times in a public place, and a person has been charged with grievous bodily harm. I've actually stopped another application, and I'm happy to explain to you the reasons why and the distinction and the reasons we put that in place.
But Commissioner, as a community, we did not sign up and agree to detail our every movement in a public place so that police could access that information in connection with a criminal investigation, any criminal investigation. That was not the bargain with the public. These were public health measures. And you know that as much as anyone because you were the one in the meetings with the Chief Health Officer and the Premier and the Health Minister, and it is a clear breach of the public's trust.
That's your view. It's not my view. And the law specifically provides for police in exceptional circumstances to make an application for a justice. This is not police just fishing around. Police have a duty if any person is murdered, any person, doesn't matter who they are, the police have a duty to collect the best possible evidence and put that before a court. This is not for police purposes. This is for the community of Western Australia. People expect police to do their job. Now, I accept that you are mounting a very emotive argument here, and it may well be one that others agree with. I will do my job, and I expect police officers to do their job according to the law. If the law is not what the people or the Parliament want, then the law must change. Don't expect me to do my job half-baked. I expect my officers to do everything possible to bring a murderer to justice and to bring a person who stabs another to justice. I'm not going to take half measures with that, and I make no apology for it.
The Premier told Parliament yesterday that he asked you in April to stop this practice. How did that conversation go down?
Well, look, he made it very clear he wasn't happy about that. And this is a really important...
So it's not just me. I think that's an important point to make. You said I've made an emotive argument. I think I've actually made a principled argument, and apparently it's one the Premier agrees with.
Well, the Premier did raise it with me, and he was very concerned. And look, there's a very important principle. We're talking here about really important points of law and what the community expect. The law as it stands requires police to do their job. And there's also a very important principle about separation of powers. I don't think, and I heard your editorial, very emotive about being a tin pot, authoritarian state, etc. There is a very important principle here. I would not do my job as police commissioner if I was directed by the Premier or the politician elected by the people as to how to run a murder investigation. That is a clear separation of powers, and that's why police are not elected in this country to their positions. We're appointed by the governor, and there's a really important principle here. No one would want, I would think, certainly the country I live in, to have anyone, and I respect, Premier McGowan very, very highly, and I don't want to particularise it for him, the individual, but I would not want any politician to direct a police commissioner as to how to police.
Indeed, and it's important to know that he didn't.
Very wrong principle.
Yeah, and he didn't direct you. Instead, he decided to change the law to clarify that you shouldn't do it, which is what's happening now.
And I totally respect that. So, and as I said to him, Premier, I will continue to do my job. I'm not blind to political policy issues, but said, I can't, even at law. I've got to be very careful that I don't fetter a detective from Homicide Squad as to how to investigate a homicide.
Is there not a quite important point here, and that is that we are in a state of emergency, as we're constantly reminded every 5 minutes, and you're the one who's signing these extraordinary emergency orders. If there was a proposal in ordinary times to bring forward something like this, it would be rejected entirely by the Parliament and by the people of Western Australia. There's a specific purpose for these arrangements that came in because of the pandemic, and you're the one signing the order. You're also the one using them for the purpose that the public wasn't made clear about.
And the point I'm making is that I will have to exercise my discretion in matters of how we can actually exercise the rule of law. Now, you would not want, I'm sure no one would want, our hotel quarantine system, which has been under immense pressure. We all know that, and the people have talked about bungles and all sorts of things. It's actually worked very well, despite a small number of instances where people have got infected. But no one would want methamphetamine, an illicit drug, to be delivered to a hotel room in a hotel quarantine system, would they?
No.
Because that's exactly what happened. So in February this year, I became aware, in fact it was March this year, I became aware that methamphetamine had been brought into one of the hotel quarantine lobbies. It was delivered to a room and was found to be meth. It was actually delivered to the wrong room. So I had investigators who came to me and said, we want to know who actually brought that into the lobby. And you'd think there's a good public reason for that. No one wants meth brought into a quarantine system. I overrode that and said, look, in this instance, we should not do it. But in the case of a murder investigation, we should.
All right. Commissioner, I'd love to talk more about this. The clock is going to beat us. I do appreciate you coming on, and I mean that. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll talk about this issue more in the future and other issues as well.
They're very important issues, so happy to be on.
Commissioner Chris Dawson. Premier coming up after 7:30, $1,000 minute after this. If you'd like to play, call now, 922 11882. We'll take caller number 5.